Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us, the Montana Lifestyles Podcast. Hanging out with Cyrus Walker. Please enjoy 100%. I got mine hiding around here somewhere. Mine's a rock star, though.
Oh, nice.
Not as spicy as yours, maybe.
No, well, had a day. So.
What show are you with, Cyrus?
The Best of the West.
Yeah? And how you liking it so far?
It's good. Thursdays are always a little slow.
Yep, we're getting the start.
Yeah, but it's nice. People are coming by and saying hello. And
This is my first show. And so far, I'm in that moment where I'm just sucking up all the compliments right now.
Got it.
That's been pretty sweet.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about your art, Cyrus.
Well, what do you want to know?
Tell me a little bit about your style. What are people clicking on for you? What's the piece that everyone's seeing so far that's making eyes?
Well, I brought an older piece. I just found it in my studio. Basically, while I was packing up for this show, I was rummaging around and I found an old piece and I dusted it off and put a frame on it and brought it up. And it's several years old, but that's the one that people have been sort of asking me about. It's just a really, I don't know, it's a weird looking piece, but I guess maybe that's why they like it.
That's why they like it.
Yeah, it's a little different.
And your style is so personal to you too. Everyone connects with the Cyrus pieces.
Well, they're sort of unique-ish. There's a lot of other artists making work in the similar vein that I'm going with, but I think I don't know, the kind of idea behind this style of work. A lot of it is really reminiscent to the old publications in comic books and pulp novels, sort of based back in the 1950s. And I think the kind of idea behind it all was to, at a certain point, there was the Western art genre kind of made a split between work that represented or emulated reality, and then this other side that was just pursuing this Western narrative,
like a perfection Western.
Well, like a lot of the spaghetti Western stuff.
Yep.
A lot of the Hollywood pursuits. It just sort of, the Western genre became much more fabricated.
Right.
Really.
Right.
Which is great because it's all kind of fantasy realm at this point, because we're all still sort of fascinated with the old West and the old tales of the West.
Yep.
And I found that the more illustrative style that I'm kind of using, it emulates a lot of those old publications and comic books of the past. And
you work at such a large scale too.
Well, that's the other part of that work too. When you take something that was supposed to be, this big, and then have to figure out how to scale it up, it changes the meaning a little bit. It adds a little something to it.
It adds punch, I would say. I'd say it certainly, it makes it unique when you expect that as like a single. What's the word I would be looking for? Like a single square of a comic book or something like that, And yet you've captured so much in one scene,
Yeah, and that style kind of lends itself to being able to capture a lot, because it's no longer steeped in reality, and because the paintings aren't based off of things that you're seeing in real life, I have a lot of freedom to really manipulate the narrative how I want, and so that's kind of the background behind it. The paintings are really more of a commentary on the Western genre itself, and it's utilizing these images of the past that I feel like really are a good metaphor, a visual metaphor for the Western narrative itself.
What got you into the Western side of things?
Rodeo posters. I was making rodeo posters years ago, and because I was doing a lot of graphic design work before.
Yeah, a lot of reference.
Yeah, and a lot of reference. And when I was in college, I was working at an antique shop in Bozeman called what the fuck was it called? East Main Trading Company.
Okay.
It's no longer there, but when I was working there, I would stumble across publications with these just neat little teeny thumbnail drawings, and they were really cool. And I gravitated towards them because I knew I had a similar style of drawing.
Yep.
And I always kind of thought that stuff was a great sort of representation of how a lot of people got to understand the West. It was through these mass publications.
Right.
And the artwork that came with them was always just really unique and fascinating. They were always usually not very detailed, just contour drawings. I just really liked them, and so I figured out how to
mimic the theory.
Yeah. It's just a little point in the overall timeline of the Western genre that I'm just kind of fascinated with.
So what made you take it from such a small thumbnail size to blown up so large?
Turns out, if you want to make fine art, it kind of has to be on canvas.
Yeah.
And it kind of has to be big. The kind of the granddaddy of doing that would probably be Roy Lichtenstein.
Right.
He was well known for taking. What he would do is he would find little pieces of comic books, and he would basically just scale them up and change the composition a little bit. And this pissed off a lot of people, especially the comic book artists, because to be fair, they never really got their time to shine in fine art, even though I would consider them fine artists, and they would as well. But because of the scale of it and because of the mass production of it, it was never really considered fine art. But if you scale it up, all of a sudden it becomes fine art. So by using those principles and using that same style, you can you can kind of bridge these two worlds, and I found that interesting. And because of what I do, I can generate these original compositions using that old style, and hopefully it is a bit for the folks that are old enough to remember those old publications, it's a bit reminiscent.
Yes,
close
to home.
Yep. And for the folks that didn't have the opportunity to experience those old books, it comes across to them, I think, as this sort of like whole new thing.
Yeah.
Even though I know it's not that new. It's I'm just sort of trying to celebrate a really unique part of the Western timeline.
Yeah.
That's
very cool. And then now, I've followed you for 3 years so far. We met in 2020 at a show that Mark put on. And so that's how far...
It was over at the Heritage.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
It was. And so when
during COVID.
Yep, exactly. Right in the middle of 2020. It was right there. And so... Mark McKenna was one, and I think he worked with Mimi to put up that show that you were in. Yeah. So how long have you been doing this, and are you full-time, part-time in this, or? Full-time.
I think I've been working on this particular body of work for, it's got to be almost 7 years now.
With the eyebrow raised there, it's been a little bit.
Yeah, I'm just trying to remember. It's hard to say, because it's always been...
Yeah.
I've been always been painting, but it's been with different things. But I think when I really kind of stumbled upon this particular, we'll call it like a thesis. There's something I'm trying to articulate.
It's a good choice of words, actually, for it.
Visualize.
Yeah.
There's a quote. It seems incredibly cruel to ask somebody that is best suited to communicate visually to explain something verbally.
Yeah.
So I just sort of stick with that.
So you need to come and see his work, and you need to come and see everyone's work here, because there's a lot of really amazing stuff going on. Ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, my podcast died there while I was interviewing Cyrus, but I thank you so much for watching. Big thank you to Johnson Madison Lumber for supporting the podcast. Greatly appreciate them. And also a big thank you to Ferrins Furniture for providing these awesome, very, very comfortable chairs for the interview. And of course, big thank you to all of the amazing people who support the show. You can learn more Montana Lifestyles podcast and see all the different podcasts that we've done right here from these very chairs. And of course, come join us. It's a Great Western Show. We're here for 3 more days, and I'm enjoying every minute of it. And I don't want you to miss out on a thing. Come and see at the Great Western Show, where we have so many shows combined, as you can see with the logos around us here, and over 240 plus artists all in one place with so many different styles, so many different personalities, so much joy for you to enjoy. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you on the next one, my friends. Thanks for watching the Montana Lifestyles Podcast.